Hey, good afternoon, John Donovan.
Hey, Marty Keller.
And good afternoon to all of those who follow this podcast. Welcome to the Intentional Living Podcast. Marty Keller here in Sacramento. And I see John's not in his normal place in San Diego.
No, I'm in Portland, Oregon, a place called Tigard. It's a little town, Tigard, out of Portland.
Nice. Beautiful.
It is beautiful here. Nice and sunny. My daughter said this is the last 2 days is the only day she's seen the sun in a long time.
Nice of Dad to bring that son from Southern California.
Followed me on the plane.
Well, we enjoy these things while they last, don't we?
Yes.
Um, for those of you who like the symbolism, we're John and I are recording this on Good Friday. And of
Oh,
course, Good Friday is kicking off the Easter weekend. And in the metaphysical Christian world, as we may have been noting, this represents the death of the ego and the resurrection into higher consciousness. And that's important because here in the Intentional Living podcast, we focus on dealing with those patterns of behavior that we feel have been stuck, that we're stuck in. We find ourselves doing things when our conscious mind says, don't do that. And all of this is the result of early childhood trauma and patterns that were formed before we ever had a conscious say. And the
hmm
intentional living work is about essentially, I'm going to just use the Christian terminology because it's that weekend. It's about resurrecting into a higher consciousness, resurrecting into the world or the experience of life that we say we want. That's the consciousness. I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health. That's my life intention. And the work that you and I have done, John, has helped me, and whatever higher power, whatever else is helping make that happen. It's what's happening in my life.
hmm
And I know today we wanted to talk a little bit about how we generate the results that we say we want. Every once in a while, we step back and reflect on why we're in doing this intentional living work. And you've been doing this for over 25 years. I've been doing this for 15 years, and we have found it of great value to ourselves. Um, we were in a meeting last night with some newcomers, and we were talking about the the hang in there conversation because it takes a while for us to get these results. But if we can hang in there with ourselves and with the visible and invisible means of support that we all have access to, then we can create some spectacular results. What are your thoughts?
Uh, one of the promises in the program, and there's 12 of them. One of them is you will come to a life you never knew possible. So I came to a life that I couldn't have described back then. And if I could have, well, the life I wanted that I thought I wanted, if I had described it would have been a lot more limited than the one I found through this process of recovery, through the 12-step process, and then into this accountability practice. I have come to a life I never knew possible, and it's just amazing. I'm grateful, um, and um, it's yeah, it's fantastic. And then we're going to talk about the details here about what that means and what it looks like and the actual practice itself.
One of the as you were sharing, I was thinking about uh, the utter radical nature of what you just said, to create a life that we never knew possible.
hmm
And what flashed into my mind is the fact that I grew up and lived through most of my life without any real experience of unconditional love. And growing up, or when we're born utterly programmed to experience what's coming at us as unconditional love. And most of us have an experience that's conditional rather than unconditional. And that sets you pardon the pun, conditions for the rest of our lives. so that
Hmm.
many of us don't really actually know what love is. And so
Right.
to discover the life that we never knew possible for me includes discovering the love that I never knew was possible.
Yeah. And my childhood was riddled with um, accusations, affirmations that somebody who did have or could be unconditionally loving was one person, Jesus Christ or Christ, and that we are miserable wretches, and so do the best you can and pray for mercy, pray for mercy, pray for forgiveness, um, and that's not what I have experienced through this process. I was in a workshop um, early mid 90s, and the facilitator, it was an expensive workshop at the time, so, and the facilitator came in and he said a lot of things, but one of the things he said was, "You are going to experience unconditional love on this weekend." And I thought, "Damn, he's already got my money. I've already paid. That's like I'm screwed here." That's the craziest. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. This guy's wacko, and people are paying him good money to listen to him too. So I thought, oh my god. And I actually experienced unconditional love in that workshop. And I had no idea how it was going to happen. In fact, I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it was impossible. And yet, the way they set the workshop up, and this workshop is where I put my toe in what I'm now calling accountability, the ability to say exactly where I'm at without blame or judgment. And that in itself, me being able to say where I'm at, no matter where that at is, and an example of where that at was is introducing myself at a 12-step meeting. Hi, my name's John. I'm an alcoholic. That truth, blame-free, judgment-free. Although when I said it 37 years ago, I didn't realize that that was an experience of unconditional love, because nobody in that room, except for me, nobody in that room was judging or blaming me for this statement. They were all in alignment because they all had the same goal, is to break free from alcoholism. Um, and then when I went to this guy's workshop, we did a process. I'm not really remembering exactly what the process was, but I was just giving and receiving unconditionally in this workshop, and it was amazing. Um, so that opened the possibility that, oh, maybe I could sustain and maintain it. That maybe there's a way to sustain and maintain that, because it worked at the workshop. These workshops, you go pay good money, feel real good, and then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh my god, what's this all about? This I just blew another couple $100 because it didn't last. The practice that I've, what I call the body of work, is something that you can take to any now moment you have. Practice unconditional, saying the truth of where you find yourself, blame free, judgment free, and experiencing yourself in this feeling tone of blame free, judgment free, no matter what the condition is, whether it's codependency, alcoholism, or some type of avoidant behavior. And what I mean by avoidant behaviors, mine were some of them. I got a laundry list of avoidant behaviors that I indulged in. One of them was rageaholic. The other one was workaholic. Um, and that's what I mean by avoidant behaviors. And to be able to say the truth in the moment about where I find myself, blame free, judgment free, creates a connection. And I think this is the first time I'm saying it this way, a connection to that ethereal thing we call what? Spirit, God, quantum field,
Divine
universe,
love.
divine love. There you go. And there's a space, a freedom, a spaciousness, even in the admittance of the character defect or the flaw or the, oh my God, I am actually mean. I'm nice deep breath. Yeah, of course you are. Yeah, I see that. I see that. I'm seen and heard not only by myself, but the people I'm doing it in front of. Um, so yeah.
There's a couple things that jump into my mind as you were sharing, and one of them is, and you hinted at this when you talked about you obliquely referred to your religious upbringing as a little boy,
Hmm.
and I believe, like myself, you were raised as a Catholic, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So those of you who are watching this who were raised Catholic know that there's a certain body of belief that we were taught, but I think also we pull the camera back and we can look at Western culture more generally, a lot of these things are going to be true. And a couple of them, number one, I was raised with the belief about what love was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And part of it is the Hollywood, part of it is, we were raised with rock music and I Can't Live Without You and
Right. Right.
all
Everly
that.
Brothers.
And
Yeah.
you make my dreams come true
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and all that stuff. So on the one hand, I'm raised with this sense of what love's supposed to be, and it ain't what's showing up. And then as I matured and I got involved in spiritual practices, there was a parallel thing, which is here's what enlightenment is supposed to be.
Hmm.
And it was similarly misguided, or I misunderstood it. Maybe it was spoken accurately and I misunderstood, but it wasn't what it's turned out to be. And
Right.
I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that because the uh, what why I said this, John, is because I recognize that as you were saying it, when I'm doing the accountability tree practice and I just state the facts, I
Hmm.
accountability. I
Hmm.
account for what's going on right now. The without blame or judgment means unconditional.
Right.
No blame, no judgment means I'm in an unconditional, loving relationship with myself. I'm giving myself permission to own an unpleasant truth or a truth I had previously held as unpleasant, maybe led to avoidant behaviors to avoid the truth.
Right.
I, as those of you who've watched this before, I love being in debt. That was for me, for those of you who are watching for the first time, that was my first understanding of that was my first experience of what John's talking about here. To be able to tell the truth of something that I'd been avoiding or pretending wasn't so without making myself wrong, that feeling in my body, that which we've talked about before, that rush of relief, that sense of sloughing off of
Hmm.
something that maybe my muscles in my shoulders and my arms have been taut and like carrying the world on my shoulder, and all of a sudden don't have to.
No.
For me, that was my first experience. We didn't talk about it in the meeting, I don't think, but that was my first experience of unconditional love.
Yeah. 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 We didn't frame it in those terms. And I witnessed you finding relief and um, awareness of, oh my God, oh my God. Um, Anything that's manifesting in my life that I say I don't want. Some people call it self sabotage or failure to thrive. Anything, whatever that is, I call a failure, is actually the success of a hidden belief. Like my hidden belief, based on what I was told as a child and exemplified, not just told, but exemplified by both my mom and dad, was that whatever I am is not enough.
Right.
So that reality of that child, which child from 1 to 7 is in theta, that's their truth, that's what they see, that's how it is, that's how I am, becomes the belief, hidden belief of the adult. So I'm taking menial jobs. I'm taking jobs that I don't think I'm worthy of, or I find my niche in things I can do that were easy for me to do, and yet way below my capacity to that I could do, and was happy. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm a good boy. I'm working real hard. I'm doing this. I'm not saying I'm better than everybody else. I'm staying in my lane. All these things we say instead of going to my zone of excellence, which is me being exactly who I am, that wasn't as I came to the planet, birthed into, which I was conditioned out of by their expectations of who I should be, how I should be. Children should be seen and not heard. I don't know how many times I heard that. How come you mess that up? Why are you stupid? It's like, how do you answer that question? Why am I stupid? Okay, there must be a reason I'm stupid. So I got to come up with a rational reason. No, there's no. That's not a question. That's an accusation. That's a well, accusation. And the
It's an
child
act
has
of
nothing.
emotional violence.
It's an act of emotional violence, and the child has no recourse other than to absorb, which is the way it works. Between the ages of 1 and 7, we're sponges, and it's not because we're in recovery or we're special. Every human being on the planet comes in this way so that they can gain the insights into the culture that they're born into. And there's a million cues about how to, what to, when to, if to, or not to, that you need to learn by the time you're old, 7 years old. That you can only learn that through this sponge theta hypnotic space where everything is yes, 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 yes. And being raised by people who didn't understand this, their intentions were to make me okay so that I could get into life and live life the way they saw it. So I was told, oh, don't get too full of yourself. Oh, don't be selfish. Don't think of yourself first. All this stuff, and then yeah, and then I grew up and I found myself naming that as codependent. In other words, my value was on everybody else's results, not my results. They had to be happy. If they're not happy, there's something wrong with me. If they're not happy, and I did everything I should have done, then there's something wrong with them. It's like they should be happy. Wow, I did everything I'm supposed to do. You should be happy. How come you're mad? How come you're angry? How come you're disappointed? You're frustrated? No, no, no. And I live my life trying to manage that, which is unmanageable. It's completely unmanageable, which created the stress and the consternation in myself that kept me. I discovered recently that what I feared the most was the feeling of being alive, being me, spontaneous, silly, adventurous, curious. All those feelings, I was told I was either selfish or in the way or a burden, or how come you can't just like be quiet and don't slam the screen door. It's like, you're the adult, put a rubber thing on there. Kids run through shit. It's like that's they're alive, they're adventurous, and yeah. So where we at? I'm like,
Well, we started talking about results, and we're kind of talking about some of the results here, and I raised the issue of one of the results that I hadn't known was possible was the experience of unconditional love.
right.
And I know there's more to it, so that's where we've been. That's kind of what we've been focusing on.
Okay. And coming to a life we never knew possible.
Right.
Um, and the practice is what I'm referring to as the accountability tree. Maybe I should bring that up, and we'll see where this goes. Here it is. Is that doable, or does it need to be bigger?
You can make it a little bigger. That wouldn't hurt. There you go.
So here we are. And let's focus on what we're calling the practice of the accountability tree. And most people listening know the the build up to what this statement might be. And I'm going to say briefly for somebody who hasn't heard this before, that it's simply owning the where you're at. I was with one of my teachers one time, and she said, for you to be in the present moment, you have to know three things. And I go, what are that? She goes, who am I? Where am I? What do I want? And I thought, that sounds too easy, and I don't understand what you mean. I'm right here, and I'm a man, and I had my answer to that in my head, and what I'm understanding is the where I'm at, saying the truth about where, the condition I find myself, based on my childhood trauma, unresolved trauma. I found myself codependent, addicted to alcohol and other things, mostly alcohol, and then in some type of avoidant behavior. And what I was avoiding was any sense of feeling tone of being alive. In fact, when I did feel alive, spontaneous, genuine, I may have said something to somebody in a crowd that was spontaneous, I felt guilty, or I thought, oh, should I said that? Did I say too much? Or how come I said that silly thing? Oh, that sounded silly. And I would beat myself up. Oh, you know what? The battery's running low. And my thing is out of the thing. So can we take a break right here, and I'll go get that, because this is going to go
Yep.
out. I'm not close to it. It's going to take me about 3 minutes.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. Technical issues resolved. John, go ahead.
Who are you? Where are you? What do you want? So I've come to find out that the where I am, just where I am, without blame or judgment, just stating the data of where I find myself, wherever that is in this column. And this is where when I first started looking, this is where I found myself. Well, actually, my thought was, I'm a nice guy. Just don't mess with me. That's where I found myself. In my recovery, I began to own the traits that I found myself in. And one of the ways to own or name is codependent. In other words, I'm dependent on somebody else to feel good about myself.
Right.
Somebody else's, okay. So the where I'm at, that's what happens when we do the tree. Because if, like I was talking before, I'm a nice guy. It's just everything's kind of confusing and people are kind of weird, and I do kind of weird things too. It's like, but I'm a nice guy is not definitive. So there's no place for me to look to move to from. If I'm a nice guy, then I just got to do what I've been doing better, so that people appreciate it more and actually see that I'm a nice guy. But that is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So what's different? Not doing it over and over. The where I am is just honestly saying the condition I find myself in, blame-free, judgment-free. Now, I could blame family of origin, and I have identified family of origin as the beginning of my codependency. Okay, and where I'm at, based on where I come from, this is where I'm at. I'm codependent. Hi, my name's John. I'm an alcoholic. Or, oh my God, I'm a rageaholic, workaholic. So the where I'm at is in the accountability process, just simply my truth, without blame or judgment. And when I say I'm mean, all the stuff that influenced my decision-making process that led to mean actually make sense. Of course I'm mean. What do I want to replace that with? And in that statement, I'm mean, where I'm at, that statement has encoded in it the motivation for all the decisions I made, conscious, subconscious, to end me up to the where I'm at. And I'm going to end this with, and we'll talk more about, the who am I and what do I want. Where I'm at is really important for me to move in any definitive direction. The where I'm at here in this moment has to be, doesn't have to be. When it's the more concise it is, the more able I'm to discern what I want specifically. The example is, of course, malls are kind of out of season. If you used to go to a mall, every pillar had a map, and the only thing on that map, guess what, is you are here. Now, why was that important to all the merchants in that? Because then you could find them. If you knew where you're at, you could find them, depending on what you're looking for. The what I want part, and we'll get into that next time.
I want to emphasize a point. See what you think about this, because the idea of I'm whatever is a truth. And sometimes when we do the accountability tree, it doesn't even have to be that big picture. It could just be, what am I feeling in this moment?
Right.
Forget the story, forget the label even.
Right.
I'm feeling this energy in my body and I feel like I'm going to blow up.
Right. So and it could be like I feel inadequate. I feel inadequate, or I feel unworthy, or I feel small.
Or I'm angry, I'm frightened, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
So just for the newcomer, when we're gonna take a pause now. We're gonna pick this up in the next half, which will be posted next week. Everything starts with where I am right now.
Yeah.
And and the more granular I can make it, the more present I am with with who I am in this moment.
Right.
And so we'll leave that suspense there for come back and look at that in greater detail.
But who shot JR? Who shot JR?
Exactly. But as always, I want to thank you, John, for participating in this, and everybody who's joined us. We do this work in group.
Yeah.
That when I say we do this work and learning how to work this accountability tree that you see there on the screen. We learn to do that initially with each other in group settings until we can get it down so well that we start doing it on our own without necessarily having support around us.
Right.
But it took me several years to really get to that point. So John facilitates a meeting on Saturday mornings. I facilitate a meeting Wednesday afternoons. Our colleague Dan facilitates Monday nights, and our other colleague Rodney facilitates Thursday nights. They're all on Zoom, and information on the various addresses for the different meetings and the specific times will be at the end of the podcast. So we invite you to come and join us and see if you can't join us in creating the results that you would like to create for the life that you really, in your heart's desire, would like to live. And with that, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.
You got it, Marty. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Uh-huh.